Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with some of the colleagues today.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we're going to present you with Game Master tips, how to be a strong DM. So, what's
get your DM weight up, kid. No, so essentially, like there's a lot of elements that go into GMing. Okay, some people are really good at doing voices. Some people are really good at role playing, and they don't necessarily have to be the same thing.
Right.
Some people are really good with different story elements and different plot elements, and so the purpose of this video is to help you guys be the best DM you can be. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you is by being your own GM, don't try and be in somebody else's.
Right.
You know, if you're not a strong voice guy, then don't focus on that.
Right.
So focus what you're good at. Play to your strengths.
Yeah, play to your strengths. Minimize your weaknesses as best you can. Like, I'm not really that great of a role player, and I'm horrible at doing voices and stuff like that. But I'm really good at weaving story elements. I'm really good at pulling the plots that have been presented throughout the game, recognizing them and weaving them back into the game later on. I'm good at taking backstories from my players and weaving them into my games. I'm good at taking things that seem completely random and putting them in a particular order that make my PCs all show up where I need them to be at the same time.
Right.
Even if they've never met each other.
Right.
So a strong session 0 is something that you would focus on. So
Always.
you want a big showing at session 0 to really get all that together.
For me, it's really helpful, and it's actually it was only after we started doing Nerdarchy that I really started focusing on session 0, and like that's after having been a DM for a few decades. I don't know that we ever did that in the past. I think we did a combination of character creation sessions and show up with your character. Occasionally, there'd be some back and forth between the players before the game started.
Talk on the phone with you, like, hey, I've got this idea. Are you going to allow it? This is what I'm thinking.
But that being said, like, our group has been together in some incarnation or another for a long time too. Right. So there's a certain level of comfort that comes from that, and just knowing the people that are at the table for you. But even still, like, there's a huge benefit to session 0. And we've recently started a bunch of games with people we don't know. So again, that was another great reason to do session 0. I mean, for my game, one of the reasons I did it is like, we're bringing together all these people that don't actually know each other.
Right. And
we don't know that well. So I was like, you know what? I don't even know if I called it session 0 when we did it. But I was like, if we get together, we build our characters, everyone can meet each other.
I think for your Griffin Gaff campaign, we had a get together, but I don't believe we called it session 0. For your Outcast game, which was only like 2 months ago, our session 0, we totally had a session 0. It was labeled as such.
Yeah. But like during that session 0 that wasn't labeled as session 0, like I spent that whole time taking notes from people talking about their characters.
Right. And I think that's very important. I personally like to go a step further, get the information from the characters, but I also like to get the information from the players as to really find out like what kind of game they want, what kind of interactivity and level of what kind of things they're looking for. And I try to make sure all the elements that each player wants winds up getting into the game. Like we've gamed with people who are very story driven. We've gamed with people who are very combat heavy. So you want to make sure that these elements are weaved into your game, because ultimately, as the DM, you're playing. You're presenting this story to your group of players, and if you're providing a game that they're not going to have fun with, you're not doing your job. So, I look at, you have to make sure you have the elements that your players are going to want.
That's a good point, because like, so what Ted just really said, like, this is what I heard anyway. Ted is focused on for his game on the element of the players. Like, what do the player want? What their goals as players, not as characters. Where I did the opposite. Like, I'm like, what do the characters want? What are these characters about? So they're two different styles of DMing, and they're two different approaches.
Well, I try to do both. You know, it's really difficult. My game, I'm somewhere between 7 and 9 players at the moment, so it's a little bit tricky to try and weave everything together. So when you've got that many players sitting around the table, you're not going to be able to fulfill everything for everyone every single session.
Yeah, well, for the purpose of this video that we're doing right now, though, the important thing is like looking at different elements of GMing and how,
right, that's true.
how that breaks down, and how you guys can take that information back to your table and go, oh, wait a minute, I don't actually have to be all things to everyone.
Right.
Yeah, so there's different things, you know, that people can focus on.
So the next thing is material prep. And we've spat this out a number of times. You know, on our website, there's a link to getting a copy of the Lazy DM, the Lazy Dungeon Master, and it's a really great book. And Dave and I have both run sessions with literally 3 words, 3 sentences written down on your paper, and that's all you need to run, the session for the evening, and off you go.
And I want to say that's a level of comfort. So I would say, don't say, well, this is everything I need to be totally fine with this evening going well. I would say rather you should focus on your level of comfort with information. So
yes.
If you only need 3 sentences, because those are just going to remind you of what you want to do or where you want to drive the night, plot wise and fight and combat wise, then that's good. But like you need to figure out as a GM where your level of comfort lies in that prep. So I mean, I used to prep where I would say, all right, these are the monsters they're going to fight. I'm going to like write down the stats of the monsters just so I don't have to even go to the book. And now I just put a little sticky note in.
Well, yeah, I do.
In the monsters manual.
I've done everything from blank piece of paper in front of me to, like you said, I've written out the stats. I've written my own flavor text. Descriptors of everything. And basically, by the end of the adventure that you're preparing, you've written a module.
Yes, and I actually have some of those notebooks, from old campaigns up in the attic, where you have all of that information that you could just literally, okay, let me type this up and release it. It's done.
And my point is, at the time, that's what you felt like you needed to be at, like a comfort zone for actually being ready for the session. While now it's like, well, you'll do with what you got. Oh, I've got a blank piece of paper. I guess this is what I got. But a paragraph or 2, and you're ready to go based on the evening. So while other people are still going to be at that level where they want stuff written out, or they want to be able to focus on something else, some other aspect that they want to put out there. Let's say they like doing voices, or their character. The people seem to really like that, so they're going to try and do that. Even if it might not be what they're best at. But they can kind of like focus on those things because they're good at where they are with the amount of preparation. But again, like I don't do much prep on my stuff, except when I write like part of the backstory for the world we've got. But then I also just say, well, I'm going to use that later, and then I write specifically what I think is going to be going on. Like, oh, this is a point I want to bring up. So I wanted to bring up comfort level, and I also wanted to bring up for my style, because I have like a large background in different crafts and information, and like a jack of all trades kind of approach to a lot of different knowledges, that small attention to detail that seems real in the bringing realism to the fantasy game. I don't mean, well, a longsword would not really do that type of damage. I'm not that.
You're putting Ted to sleep here.
Yeah, all the game statistics aside, like, describing what actually happens in the combat based on rolls, I like doing that. So description and attention to detail is where my players seem to get the most enjoyment, because like, I really feel like the world's real because of these strange details that I put in.
Right.
Like a guy was paying 250 gold. This is an example. 250 gold for a contract with the players. They signed the contract, and they're like, all right, well, here's your partial payment. It was 500 gold. Here's a partial payment of 250. Meet me in this city with the item, and I'll give you the rest. Well, he gives them trade bars, which are these bars of gold and silver that you just can't take to a tavern and go, here you go. Well, it's because he didn't have a fat stack of. Imagine carrying it like, oh, $250, no problem. Here's a $100 bill.
You should have still paid them in wheat.
And a $100 bill, and here's a $50. Because I'm dealing in like large quantities of money. You're not going to carry around 250 Sacagawea dollars, you know, like it doesn't make sense to do it that way.
Right.
So that's why I was going for that kind of more of a realistic kind of quantity. If you had 250 gold, what was it really be in?
Right.
So there's those little attention to details that I like to excel at, and I enjoy in bringing it to the table. And I guess because I do that well, my players appreciate it. So
Cool.
Well, so yeah, I mean, really, there's a lot of different roads you can take to get to that end destination of a fulfilling, satisfying game that your players enjoy. So, like, if you're online and you're watching Acquisitions Inc., or you're watching The Provokers, or one of these other games, or even a Nerdarchy game, like, you don't have to GM the way any of us do it or any of those people do it. You know, you have to find your comfort level and figure out what you're good at and focus on that. You know, the other stuff, yeah, you're going to end up having to do it because, you know, being the DM is like you're a jack of all trades anyway.
Right.
But, you really focus in and hone on those things where you have mastery and comfort. You know, so maybe you need to do a lot of prep work and you always need to have things organized. So a sandbox game is not a good game for you to run, which that's fine. Like, you know, until you get comfortable at that level where you're just going to, you know, do everything, you know, on the fly. You know, run linear story arcs. I mean, people call them railroads, but, you know, yeah, with really, really, really wide tracks is the DMG info.
Yeah, it's DMG info. I like to think of it I run a sandbox that's really the Matrix. That's what I run in my games.
Nice.
They're actually in a system. They just can't recognize it that it is actually a system.
The next thing I would say is, if you do the kind of thing where you're prepping little, while you're actually playing, or regardless of how much you're prepping, while you're playing, make sure you're taking notes, or if you can actually contract one of your players to take notes during the game, so that whenever they meet an NPC, what's the place, what's the business called, what's the NPC's name, what's a base description, having all of that, so that if the players wind up coming back to that same place, they have access to that information, and you have access to that information. So that enriches the world. It makes it, as Nate said, more real.
I thought that was implied by when I run from a blank sheet of paper. That's literally the reason why I have a blank sheet of paper when I have no material. It's so I can write the notes down.
But like, thanks for giving me material, guys. This is good stuff.
This is going to be for next session.
So yeah, well, there is that.
No, that's a good tip, Ted.
I just and the other thing is when players give you some kind of choice, like in my game, the guy, the players kept going to the place that had the really good bread. Well, we made that a thing. That place wound up getting so big because, well, the heroes of the town keep wanting to go to Evan Wynn's bakery, and I even let the players name the place. So having them have input in the game to enrich the world, to make choices, ultimately the PCs are their choices are going to affect the world. They're going to affect the game. So make their choices count. Make their choices mean something in your world.
So yeah,
that was my point.
Well, yeah, it's a good.
I'm glad I didn't interrupt you.
As a DM, let your players do the work for you. Like, let them name stuff. Like, in the Outcast game, I totally threw the one player a curveball. She's like, "What?" Because I was like, "What's the name of the street your shop's on?" I'm like, "No, just give me a name. It's fine." And she came up with a name on the spot. Like, so you may, as a DM, you may have to train your players to do some of the things you want them to do because they're not familiar with, especially if you're giving them choices in the world that they're not used to getting.
Or they're not used to that style at all. I mean, you've never gamed with Carrie before.
No.
So...
And this is something newer for me that I've picked up from basically gaming with people online who actually have way less experience as a GM than me, but they teach me stuff all the time. And it sharpens my game, and it's a lot of fun. Like, I like giving players agency now and letting them, for one, do some of the work, and two, like, they become more vested as they add things to the world. You know, they're gonna care about those things a little bit more than the things that you put there. My opinion.
Yeah, make their choices matter. Even the junky ones that don't make sense. And be like, yeah, well, you did it, so it's going to affect the world in some way.
Like that bakery when it burns down, because it's got to burn down eventually.
Especially if there's gobbleos in there and a wild.
No. Especially if the players love it. Yeah, that's going to mean so much more now because they're invested in it. Like look, it's our ritual to go get the good bread and then interrogate a prisoner. You know, I'm waiting for the story where the bakery has burned down or is closed for some reason, and we have to do an interrogation, and we can't get the good bread. How are we going to interrogate?
Interrogation's delayed.
I expected a bigger reaction last session when I brought up that you couldn't get the bread, and nobody said anything. I'm like, okay, well, I guess
you did it wrong. There was no interrogation.
Yeah,
See, it's like our tradition is. See, it would have been so much better, like, if we're on our way to interrogate someone, and we're like, we're going to stop by the place with the good bread, Everwins.
Sorry, they're closed.
And you're like, they're closed for renovations. What? How are we going to... Where are we going to get the bread for the interrogation now?
I didn't realize it was crucial for the just interrogations because
that's when we always went there before the interrogation.
Scott was going.
Well, that's
all
when
the
the lawful good mage and the bounty hunter go before they do the interrogations.
Yeah, that's true.
I just go there because it's fashionable now. It is good though. Now
that it's a thing.
Yeah, now it's a thing.
So,
make special orders.
So I think the biggest takeaway for you guys is, if you're a new GM, is to find your style, find your voice as the GM, and really focus on the parts of the game that you feel like you're good, you're doing well, and you're good at.
And figure that out by just trying it out. I mean, you're a new GM, so they've got to deal. If it's a whole bunch of old heads doing it or new players, they're both going to give you that time to figure out what you're doing because. Right. I mean, they had to be in the same spot, or they don't want to be in that spot yet. So
right, or think about like the games you've played in and you've really enjoyed. Well, what did you like about those games? And you can try and emulate that in the beginning until you do find your own feet and your voice. Do we got anything else we want to add? Wrap this one up.
Try voices. Try. Figuring out what your level of role playing is. Figure out what you feel is ideal amount of prep, so that you're not wasting times, but you're not stammering and stuck on. Well, crap! I didn't prepare a monster. What do I do? Figure out what hole you fit into so that you can provide the best game for you and the players, because ultimately as a DM you have to be having fun too.
Well, yeah, I could put a link to the Lazy GM in the description below. That actually is really good for giving you ideas for what is valuable for you to prepare and things that you really don't need to prepare, and ways to cheat in order to make your job and life much easier. So you can find that in the description below. While you're looking there, go drop some comments, like, subscribe, and even share.
You can check us out on nerdarchy.com.
You also join the conversation over on Reddit.
So until next time, stay nerdy.
Really good at weaving story elements. I'm really good at pulling the plots that have been presented throughout the game, recognizing them and weaving them back into the game later on. I'm good at taking backstories for my players and weaving them into my games. I'm good at taking things that seem completely random and putting them in a particular order that make my PCs all show up where I need them to play me at the same time.
Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with some of the colleagues today.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we're going to present you with Game Master tips, how to be a strong DM. So, what's
get your DM weight up, kid. No. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you is by being your own GM, don't try and be in somebody else's.
Right.
If you're not a strong voice guy, then don't focus on that.
Right.
So focus what you're good at. Play to your strengths.
Yeah, play to your strengths. Minimize your weaknesses as best you can. Like, I'm not really that great of a role player, and I'm horrible at doing voices and stuff like that. But I'm really good at. Right.
Even
if they've never met each other.
Right.
So a strong session 0 is something that you would focus on. So
Always,
you want a big showing at session 0 to really get all that together.
For me, yeah, it's really helpful, and it's actually was only after we started doing Nerdarchy that I really started focusing on session 0. Actually, like there's a lot of elements that go into GMing. Okay. Some people are really good at doing voices. Some people are really good at role playing, and they don't necessarily have to be the same thing.
Right.
Some people are really good with different story elements and different plot elements, and so the purpose of this video is to help you guys be the best DM you can be.